Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. And it is a Whiskey Wednesday edition. So as always, cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
There we go.
Right.
Awesome. Today on the show, we have the one and only Seth Ure from Gainer Partners. And we wanted to have Seth on. We actually were referred to him from another one of our guests, Devin Harrison, about a month and a half ago. And he raved about him on the show, said we absolutely needed to connect with him. So we got that done and we were able to schedule this out. So we've been looking forward to this for a little while. Seth, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Devin's a good dude.
Yeah.
Yep. Had a great conversation with him. So I'm sure that he's looking forward to either watching live or catching team replay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I know you took the traditional path to HVAC financing by going out and getting your international law degree. So I was just curious if you could dive in a little bit, tell us your background, how you went from international law and practicing in Beijing to then getting into the wonderful world of HVAC and finance.
Yeah, so it's what every person in law school and the MBA school and international law degrees aspire to. They all want to be a HVAC finance person. So I set my sights high, and I lived in China for a little earlier in my life, for a couple of years in Hong Kong. I learned Chinese, and I thought I wanted to practice law. Right, I've got a couple older brothers who were attorneys, and they seemed like they were doing well, and I was like, hey, that's where the money is. So I started doing law school, and I was like, but I might want to do business. So I decided I want to do the MBA too, because it's only adds a year if you combine them. And at the time, I had an uncle who was doing a bunch of business over in China. And I reached out to his law firm and ended up getting an offer to go practice over there. And at the same time, got accepted by what's called an LLM program, which is kind of an advanced law degree. And so I went to school and practiced international law for a year. And at a firm called King & Wood Mallesons, doing like mergers and acquisitions and cross-border transactions. And my wife, at the time I was married, I had 2 kids. And we lived in like this little, I don't even know what it was, maybe like 600-700 square foot apartment in Beijing on like they said the 6th level, but it was really like the 4th level because the number 4 was unlucky. And so there is no 4th floor, or there's no 14th floor or 24th floor, so she got sick of sitting around that little apartment with 2 kids in China. And, after about 9-10 months, she's like, okay, I'm done. Right. Like, we're moving back to America. I don't want to raise my kids in this communist country. And I don't speak Chinese. You do. That's your dream. Let's find something else, I was like, okay. It was around the same time my brothers who are practicing law were leaving the law. They were like, get out while you can, go into business, don't do law. So right around the same time when I was just like, oh, crap, I guess I'm going to abandon this dream. And I made contact with sort of the senior ops guy at Goodman, Amanda, and one thing led to another, and I wound up going to Goodman. It was right when they were getting acquired by Daikin, so they were kind of looking for like this mergers and acquisition transition team. And long story short, I kind of transitioned through 3 or 4 different roles at Goodman, everything from supply chain to analytics to software implementation to manufacturing, and then wound up in marketing. And I was presenting at a lot of the same conferences as the guy who's now my partner, Rob Knoll. He was in financing. And so we were getting to be buddies, and we were watching each other present all the time. And eventually he's like, hey, why don't you join me in financing, dude? You'd be great at this. And so it's been a good ride. I took a different path than most people. Like most of the finance people I talk to, they're bankers, right? Like they do a more traditional route. So being in HVAC financing and actually haven't been in HVAC for almost a decade, and I've probably talked to, I don't know, we counted up one time, it was like 1,000 contractors that we've trained. Wow. You're like, yeah, I guess we've kind of been around the block a little bit. But it gives you good perspective. So I think we have a very different perspective than most of the finance companies out there that we bring to the contractors. And really it's about it's about adding value. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if I can add value to your business, then we'll partner together, and then we can all make money together. Our incentives are aligned. So that's how I view it. If I add value, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned that you did take a different route to this, and having that background and that knowledge, it allows you to come at it from a different angle and be able to add a ton of value. And that was what was aligned with our values in terms of how we come at it with the industry, and just coming at it with excessive amounts of value up front, and then you can ask for things in return in the back end.
Yeah. I gave you a long answer, but yeah, the industry is actually changing a lot right now, right? And so if you can bring, best practices from other industries and other, companies that aren't necessarily tied into HVAC, then you can add a lot of value, and you can kind of take a different approach to things, which, I think we do. So
yeah. So you mentioned, the industry is changing, and it really, it's starting to move into the, 2021 now, in some of the latest, greatest technology things. And usually we reserve the question for later, but, what are some things that you're seeing in the industry in terms of, I guess we can start off with some of the obstacles and frustrations, and then we can always go to, the future of it, a little bit later. But let's start with some of the challenges that you're seeing within the industry yourself.
Yeah, I think there's well, I'll speak to the industry in general, and I'll speak to us. I think there's this ever-present threat, like Damocles sword hanging over your head, right? Of contractors becoming labor-only guys, right? Like, that's always a threat, and everyone's like, well, shoot, if Amazon ever decides to go on HVAC or Tesla or Google or something like that, which they are now sort of dallying in, then do they just suddenly suck up all the leads and everyone who's a contractor out the gates? So I think that's something that contractors are thinking about, or should be thinking about, is how are you engaging in e-commerce, because more and more people's buying experiences online. So more and more the website's no longer just a billboard. It's got to be a tool. It's got to be something that your customers can engage with, rather than just, a billboard on the side of the internet highway, and as they pass by, they see, oh, there's Joe's HVAC kind of thing, right? Like, there's got to be something there for them to engage on. They've got to be able to engage in the buying decision. They've got to be able to actually get information. So I definitely see it going that way. Tech-wise, it seems like there's a lot of, at the manufacturer level, there's a lot of desire to partner up with these big tech companies to get a lot smarter about tracking leads across, multiple platforms, to deliver qualified leads to contractors. A lot going into sort of the manufacturer and distributor at that level, investing so they can deliver high quality leads down to the contractor. So, if you're a contractor and you're not taking advantage of things like that, you should be talking to your manufacturer or your distributor or whoever you're buying from, and seeing, is there an opportunity for me to invest or co-market my stuff with all of the dollars that are going into that, because that's an opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. Co-op dollars are a massive thing, and if a company is not taking advantage, of that, we talked to a lot of guys that have the co-op dollars, and they're like, yeah, we're using it. We might as well use it. But if you don't even know that's available to you, then you're essentially leaving money on the table if you're already going to that provider, which is a big thing. So I guess, what do you see for the future of the industry? What are you excited about? If I say, okay, Seth, what's your biggest excitement for the HVAC industry over the next 5 years and the next 10 years? What would it be?
That's a good question. I mean, for me personally, we're growing our business, right? So I'm hoping to make it more and more successful. In HVAC in general, here's what's interesting about HVAC is that it's sort of this neglected trade, but there's massive margins to be made in it for contractors if they run their business correctly. And I train a lot of small and medium-sized guys, and I say, hey, you don't have to be a huge guy to run your business like a huge guy. You don't have to be a $20 million dealer to actually adopt a lot of the best practices they have. And I was having a conversation with my business partner, and we were just calculating the equipment price increases over the last, 5-10 years. And if you just take that price increase and you stretch it out over the next 10 years, you're looking at a base efficiency system of around 10 grand. So price increases are going to continue. I mean, we've got a lot of spending going on, which is probably going to raise pricing even more. So we can expect to continue to see prices increase. And I had a conversation with a contractor a couple weeks ago, and he was not completely, sold on the idea that he should be offering financing. I just talked about financing, my customers need it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, if we go out 5 years from now, base efficiency systems are going to be 10 grand. How many people have that much money sitting around their bank account that they were reserving for an HVAC system? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like the dentist. You show up when something's wrong, right? People aren't looking forward to buying their new HVAC system. So you show up and they're hoping it's $200-300. And as it turns out, hey, it's $9,500. And their jaw hits the floor and it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was going to be so expensive. So the question is, hey, if you're not financing now, when are you going to start? And an alternative example of this is, if you could look back, let's say 40, 50 years of the auto industry, and you look at, a car dealer, it was possible to exist as an auto dealer without offering financing. People could come into your shop and, hey, do you have financing? Oh, we always just use the bank down the road. Why don't you walk down the road and see if they'll talk to you and give you something. Today, that guy's out of business, right? Like, you can't be an auto dealership and not have a finance guy who takes every single customer through this specific process. And that's when you get the underbody, protection, you get the bed protection, you get the, 3 years of oil changes, right? Like, there's this slow and steady upsell as you go through the finance process that adds to the overall margin of the dealership and adds to the overall price for the consumer. And we all kind of expect it because it's just the way it works. 10 years from now, I think it's going to be the same thing for HVAC guys. I mean, if you're not offering financing, if it's not just really built and ingrained directly into your system, I think it's going to be really hard to survive.
No, that's it is, right? I mean, like, not everybody can turn around and drop several thousands of dollars on a new system should their shit break or fail, or they want to replace it, et cetera. And you don't always want to continue to band-aid repair things. At some point, you want to replace that. So when you look at a business that let's say they don't have financing, right?
Yeah.
Or they're looking to partner with their financing. What are some things that they can do to ensure that they have or select? Because let's face it, there's lots of financiers out there, and I know that we're obviously chatting with you because for a reason and what you guys offer and what you guys do. But how does a person go about choosing the right financing partner or partners? Because there's different partners that have different things. So what are some things that they should look for? Not just in you, but just in general, to be able to make sure that their business is set up the right way.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the 3 Ps, right? People, process, prices, right? So let's start with prices, right? Which is your contractor fees, right? So most guys know that there's fees associated with offering financing, just like a credit card fee. Every time I swipe a card, I'm going to pay, 3.5%, something like that. And when you offer financing, there's a cost associated with each loan that you want to offer. We have 9.99% loans for 5, 10, 7, 10, or 12 years for free. So no fee to the contractor, which means that they don't have to go adding in extra dollars into their price if they don't want to increase the price. Those are really useful for like a base efficiency system where you have the least amount of margin in your product anyway. So if you're selling, let's say 13 SEER in the north or 14 SEER in the south, we all know that's sort of your price fighter. And that's where you're going to try to get in there and get down and dirty. And some people even have 2 different brands for their higher efficiency and their lower efficiency, just so they can hit that price point. If you can put that into a 9.99% loan for, let's say, 10 years and give them a $95 a month payment, and there's no fee to you, that's a big deal. So, we have really competitive fees. So all our 9.99% loans, no cost to the contractor. We have 6.99% loans for 7 and 10 years, 6%. Our 12-month no interest is 4.75%. So, for most guys, I just say, hey, listen, if you build 5% into your costs that cover your credit card and your financing as a flat rate, and just build it into every single job, you're going to cover all your financing. You're going to make a lot more money on your selling, right? Mm-hmm. Because what a lot of guys do is they're like, well, if they ask for it, then I give them financing. Like, well, here's what's going to happen, right? There's 2 things that happen. First of all, you ask them at the beginning, do you need financing? They say no, because they think it's going to be $2,400 or $300 or something. You get to the end, it's $9,800, and suddenly they're like, holy crap, I need financing. Well, now you didn't build it in, right? Now you're going to eat that cost out of your margin. Don't do that, right? The next thing that happens is the people who will bring up and ask you for financing are a lot of the people who can't get qualified for financing, right? So it's like, Yeah, the guy who's like, hey, if you can get me financing today, I'll sign up right now. That guy probably doesn't have good credit, you know?
Mhm.
So statistically,
yeah, sad but true. Yeah.
it is. So they got to normalize financing for the customer. That's a lot of what it is. So when it comes to pricing, fees are dead weight loss. Let's just be honest, right? If you can reduce your credit card fees, you're just saving money. Like, it's a commodity. Anybody who processes my credit card for less money, that's better, right? By the way, we can process it through our portal at 1.99%, you know, on all of them, as long as you're doing one loan a month, if you get qualified for that. So, but yeah, fees are dead weight loss. So if you got financing fees, you can bring them down. That's a win, right? When it comes to the process, you wouldn't believe how many guys I talk to who, you know, you talk about the process and they're like, well, yeah, you know, it takes us 20 minutes to run the application, and then it takes us an hour or two to get a decision, and then it'll take me a week to get paid. I'm like, wow. And you're putting up with that. That's horrible. You know, with us, it's a 3-minute process. You sign the loan docs literally right after the finish getting qualified, and then you get paid within 24 to 48 hours of when the job's done. So it's super seamless, and it ties directly in with the sales process that most comfort advisors go through, which is as soon as they say, yes, let's do it, you want to have the financing wrapped up and closed within 5 minutes. Otherwise, it becomes an impediment. And the longer you have between when they say yes and when you actually close, the more likely that sale is to fall through, right? So it needs to be a super fast process. And then in terms of support, you know, that's the third P is people. I mean, we do all the sales training for everybody. We walk people through the tool. If they've got multiple comfort advisors or selling text, we'll set up a Zoom training and on-site. We can do on-site trainings if it's a big enough company, and just kind of walk everybody through, do sales training, role play it with them, make sure they're all set up. Okay, show me how you're going to do this. Okay, here's some tips and tricks. Here's how to make this thing work, which we can do because we have the background in HVAC and the selling experience and stuff like that. So yeah,
I do want to circle back to the sales process, and I've written that down. But I want to kind of go in a logical sequence here, because sometimes we bounce around in our shows quite a bit, and I get a squirrel, and I know Evan gets a squirrel too, and it's just like, oh, what were we even talking about? What was the question? So when it comes to so now they okay, you know, an HVAC company, they found, you know, 1 or 2 or 3, you know, financing partners that they want to use. What have you seen as because I mean, we're in marketing, so I want to talk a little bit about the marketing side of things. So what have you seen are some of the great ways and the great things that companies have done to help market and position themselves as an all-in-one provider that has financing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously letting people know right out the gate. We talked earlier about website and how you market things, right? So there's clearly you've got to have stuff on your website that talks about financing. And I see people do this different ways, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's only one right way to do it, right? I see people who set up a like a response form where the people fill out, hey, if you're interested in financing, fill out these 3-4 questions and submit it to us. Other people take the actual lender's link and let them apply for financing directly on their site. And then other people will say, hey, we can do this for $95 a month, or we can do it for X number. So obviously step one is just awareness, right? You have to be communicating to your customer, if you're using digital or print or your website, whatever it is, you've got to be talking about financing, because for better or worse, you have to normalize financing for the customer. Most people's initial reaction when you say, hey, we offer financing, is to say something like, oh no, I don't think we're gonna need that, right? That's the initial response. And so you have to overcome that. And the way you overcome that is by conditioning them to see it. And they say that before a person can accept something as kind of a new reality, they have to be exposed to it 7 to 10 times, right? That's like what psychologists say. So people have to see financing, numerous times. When your dispatch person is talking to this person setting up the call, hey, just want to let you know we have great financing options. Ask, Jay about it when he comes out of the house. Okay. When Jay shows up at the house, first thing he talks about is, hey, I know you probably wonder how much it's going to cost. I don't know that until we get a better look at your system, but I can tell you we can do this for 90 to 140 bucks a month. We have some really great financing options, and that's what most of the people end up doing because it makes sense financially. So I'll give you a little bit more information about that later on, but I just want you to be aware that's an option, right? Normalize it. Hey, this is what most of my customers do because it makes a lot more sense for most people. So you got to mention it a lot of times. It's got to be shown to be seen. And if you do that, once you get the customer close to, okay, maybe I should finance this, you know how much easier it is to say yes to $105 a month than it is to $9,800 and drain my entire bank account or just max out my credit card. It's like, so yeah, I would say definitely getting it out there, talking about as much as possible. And that might be through monthly payments, it might be through interest rate, it might be through promotional financing, but obviously every single sale, every single job, your comfort advisors or your selling techs have to be mentioning financing. And we have a pre-qualification tool that I'll talk about a little bit later on. We can come back to that, but yeah, that repeat,
So would you have the CSRs mentioning it as well? Like as they're answering the phone, taking the call, booking the appointment, you'd have them at least mention it too?
Yeah. So I'll go to the pre-qualification tool because it's really awesome and it's pretty unique. So we can do a pre-qualification in about 30 seconds. It takes 5 pieces of information, right? Name, address, email, phone number, and annual household income. Okay, so if you think about that, you have those first 4 pieces of information on pretty much every marketed lead that comes in the door.
Yep.
Okay, so if I'm training a dispatch, a CSR, and it's coming in and I have a standard process flow, I've got this scripting that I go through on every single call, it's a really good idea to have them pull up the Sunlight app, right, and drop in the first 4 pieces of information while they're talking to the customer. And then you build in some scripting that sounds something like this. Hey, Mr. Customer, I just want to let you know that we have really great financing options, and we try to provide those to everybody when we come out to the house because we just want to make this as easy as possible for you. Obviously, you don't have to take those. We take cash, check, or card. But one of the things that we do is we qualify all of our customers just to make sure we can offer them all the options. Only thing that I need in order to get you qualified for that is an estimated household income. So that's if you added up the income of everybody in the whole entire house in a year and just kind of guesstimated at what that number would be, what would that be? They tell you a number. Click. Hey, congratulations, you're pre-approved. Great. Okay. So when we come out there, Chad will tell you more about our financing options. Now I know as a dispatch that this person is pre-approved up to 20 grand. Okay. Now I'm the comfort advisors going out to that call. Am I more excited to go out to that call or call for, Tim? And that's all I know about him. And he's 45 minutes away. How about I take the one that I know is already pre-qualified? That looks like a pretty good lead to me. So talk about increasing the confidence of your comfort advisor, which in turn will increase your close rate, right? So build it into that process. I would do that all day long.
100%. So you're right if I go to the sales process now, Thad?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. So the question I wrote down, because obviously, and you've already kind of gone through them a little bit, you offer a variety of different options, and I don't care what sales tech or company is using in terms of financing options. Obviously we suggest you, but that's because you're on the show. Regardless, they're going to have a wide variety.
Yeah.
You're going to have a wide variety of options that you can present to a customer. And you may even have that pre-qualifying number of what you can pre-qualify them for. How would you suggest that someone narrows down that option for the customer? Like, do they just lay it out for them? Like, hey, we can do 12 months at this, or you could do, 10 years at this, or you could, right? Like, how do you narrow that down for them so that it's simple and easy so that they can just present total number, monthly cost?
Yeah, this is a terrific question. And I'm going to try to keep it really concise, right? So I'll start at the high and say that we have 2 different financing programs on our platform. Okay, our first look lender is Sunlight, and they go down to about a 650, 660. Okay, in credit score, FICO score, right? We use FICO score. There's all this proprietary stuff in the background, so it's not really FICO score. There's other stuff too, but just for a rule of thumb, it's a really easy number to use, right? So go down to roughly 650, 660. If someone falls below 650, 660, we can get them qualified all the way down to 300 credit score. Okay, through our secondary program. So it's what I call heartbeat financing. You have a heartbeat, you get financed. So
the rates are probably higher, but hey, at least you get financing.
The interest rates are higher, right? So, but at the end of the day, for the contractor, never walk away from a job for financing, right? You should never be walking away from a job because they don't have money, because you can get anybody financed, even if it's just a component. They go out there because their heat failed. Initially, you're like, let's replace this whole system. Single mom with a few kids or something like that, and her credit's just absolutely in the toilet. And middle of the summer, 105 degrees, what are you going to do, right? They have no money. Are you going to leave them there with a bunch of little babies and they're crying in a 95-degree house? Are you going to do it for free and run a charity? Or wouldn't it be nice to have a financing option in your back pocket, right? And that's the situation in a lot of guys. Everybody runs into it a few times a year. Every contractor's in the business runs into it a few times a year. And there's a lot of real good guys in this industry, and they're like, oh, okay, I just ripped something out of somebody's house that was only 7 years old. I'll go get it. I'll put it in your house and I won't charge anything, right? I applaud people who do that, but at the same time, it's nice to get paid for doing the work that you do. So if you have a back pocket finance option for people with rough credit, that's great. So, but to answer your question here, Evan, loan selection really comes down to dealer fees. What do you want to pay in fees? And I ask one question to come down to this a lot of the time, right? If you were in the market and you go into a 3-bid situation, where does your pricing fall? Are you on the lower end? Are you in the middle or in the high end? Right? And is that where you want to be? Right? Because there's guys who are like, I'm always one of the cheaper guys, and that's where I want to be because that's where I add the value. Okay. If your pricing falls on the lower end, and this is a generality, right? So there's exceptions to every rule, but if your pricing falls on the lower end, you want to veer towards those zero cost loans, right? So you're probably going to be offering a lot of 9.99% loans. Okay. So you might have 3 different options. You always lead with a low monthly payment and you follow up with the same as cash offering, because at a high level, every customer falls in one of 2 buckets. They're either a cash customer, meaning they have the money, but they don't really want to write you a check, right? But they have the money. They just don't know exactly where they want to pull it from. Or you have a payment customer and they don't have the money. They might have good credit, they might have good income, but they do not have, $8,000, $9,000 or $12,000, whatever it is sitting around in the bank account. So you always offer both options because you don't know who has money. It sounds something like this. Hey, I know you weren't planning on spending $8,800 today, but we can do this for $98 a month. Or we have a promotion right now. It's 12 months, no interest. Which of those is going to fit your budget better? Right? 2 options and people say yes. 6 options and people get confused. And a confused
customer says no. So
yeah, exactly. So, so if you're a really big player, right, you might want to offer a higher perceived quality loan. So you might actually have loans like a 4.99% for 10 years, which might actually cost you like 10 or 11% in a contractor fee on your highest efficiency stuff. Most guys will end up doing something like this. They'll put 9.99% loans on their low end offering, and then they'll jump it up to a 6.99% interest rate loan for 10 years on their mid and high end offering. And what that does is it gives the customer another reason to not buy that low end system. And if they do, well, then I've got more margin built into it because I put the 5% built into it, but I'm not paying any fees on it, right? So it works really well based on how the margins work, but you also do want to have an interest rate break at the point where you want the customer to buy, right? So if you have 3 options, 70% of people are going to pick that middle option. So that's where I want my interest rate break to be. I want my bottom option to be a 9.99%. I want my middle option to be 6.99%. Because the people who are leaning towards my low end option, it's like, hey, if you can afford $8 more a month, you're going to get a better interest rate and pay a lot less in interest over the long term. And it's a higher efficiency system. So that's what I'd recommend. That makes sense. Okay, I'll bump up, right? So you use the interest rates, you use the financing as a selling tool. But I only ever say people should never have more than 2 options as a financing, and it should always be a low monthly payment option and the same as cash option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that because when you've got the cash, even when you've got it, you don't want to spend it, like you said, right? Because then you got to try and figure out what savings account am I going to pull it out of, right? So to have that option as same as cash and then pay it off over 12 months, you don't have to pull it out of a savings account, doesn't cost you anything. Now we're comfortable to go ahead and maybe we'll spend an extra $3,000 because of it.
Yeah. I always tell guys, when you show up, you're making them solve a problem, right? The problem you're making them solve is which HVAC system am I going to buy? How am I going to replace this? Don't make them solve 2 problems. The second problem is, where am I going to get the money for this? How am I going to pay for this, right? If you take that problem off the table, you're going to close a lot more jobs. So if it's the same as cash customer, it's like, look, I know I'll get a bonus. I know I'll get a cash tax return or stimulus or something over the next 12 months. I'm going to pay this thing off. I just don't know when or how yet. So don't make me figure all that out right now in order to say yes to you. I can say yes to you without figuring all that stuff out. And even our monthly payment loans, you can pay them off whenever you want. There's no prepayment penalties. So a lot of guys are like, 10 years to finance an HVAC system. That's crazy. That's longer than I finance my car for. It's like, what you're selling is affordability. People will buy the best they can afford. So if you make it affordable, people will buy it. And the average 10-year loan gets paid off in like 3-4 years because people chunk away at them and pay them off. So, you're not locking somebody into this long-term crappy note.
Yep, it's 3 to 4 years, right? But you're also presenting options, right? I mean, that's what you really want to do, is to be able to give the people the power of the choice. So let's throw this in the random question generator. I was actually just thinking I should have like this little sound thing that comes up, like random question generator, and something flash across the screen because I love the random question generator, and it's completely off topic and completely random. So What company or franchise do you wish would go out of business? Right? Right? When I saw that question, I was like, yeah, we're putting this one in here. Because that's a loaded question. So what company or franchise would you wish would go out of business?
Oh, what company do I wish would go out of business? That's such a good question.
I mean, I already know what my answer would be. My answer would be like every other marketing company out there, but well, they don't come to us. No, I digress.
Yeah. There is another finance platform out there, but I'm not going to mention them. So
yeah, probably not a good idea.
Yeah. We'll say, I'm going to have to go with Arby's, just because like the last 3 times I've eaten there, I've gotten food poisoning. So
shit.
I have like a stomach of like steel, like I was eating street food off the streets in Beijing and Hong Kong. And I stick everything in my mouth and just eat it and I'm fine. But like the last 2 times I went to Arby's, I ate my sandwich, and then an hour or 2 later, I'm just like barfing. I'm like, ugh. What in the world? I've eaten like dog and cow stomach and like pig brains, and I didn't throw any of them up. So, just
Arby's,
a little bit.
Their sandwiches really aren't that good either. And maybe there's an Arby's hater or lover on here, but like they are shit sandwiches.
Someone's like, I hate this gainer guy. I'm never using their financing.
We've been on a
bacon cheddar melt right now.
We've actually been on a big Popeyes kick with
Popeyes.
With the chicken. It's just the fried chicken on there is just, it's tasty. So that's our we only have like 2 of them in Calgary, or maybe 3 of them, but the Louisiana chicken, we've been on a huge kick for that. So my wife loves the spicy one on that. So there you go. So there we go. Tersh Blush, he loves Arby's. I told you, there's always one person in the room who just loves something that is just
my wife
loves Arby's. Sorry, Tersh.
which is why I have been 3 times in the last couple of years still, even though I don't like it.
Yeah, so next time just get their fries and then you go, right?
And I'm so glad Tersh piped up too, because Tersh actually had Rob on your show this morning.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Tersh, man, you got like I love that you're doing lives, man. Get some StreamYard happening on your shows. I'm gonna throw that out there to you. So I love the shows, but then you can oh, there we go. Okay, he's actually just kidding. He loves that place. Hates that place. Good times. All right, let's reel this back in and get back on track. So when I hear sales, when I hear financing, when I hear conversations, and heck, even in marketing too, the word trust always comes up. It's know, like, trust. I mean, you don't necessarily have to like somebody to do business with them, but you have to trust somebody. And so looking at the word trust and I know that's a big thing for you guys too, because you put it on your website. So it's like a 3-stage question. So I guess I can either lay all 3 to you all at once, or we can kind of space them out. But I guess for you guys, in what ways do you actually, let's space them out. So in what ways do you guys go about earning trust? You specifically as a company, not an HVAC company. We'll get to that, but you guys specifically.
Yeah. I'll be. I actually feel grateful every single time a contractor trusts me. I do. I don't take anything for granted. Every time a contractor like believes what I'm saying and does it, and I think I'm not like leading people astray, right? Like I'm giving people the very best that I have, and I think I have a lot to offer. I have a pretty robust background. I'm grateful, honestly. I mean, like, I really believe, like, if I can't build value, then you shouldn't work with me. I mean, if I can't actually help you make more money in your business, then you shouldn't work with me. Like, I'm not the guy. And I talked to this huge company, actually. This was last week. And they called up and we were talking about financing, and they were like, I talked to this other finance company, and they were like, well, what can you do for us for volume? How much volume can you give me? I was like, what a question. You know what I mean? What an entitled question. Here you are, like, you're the finance company. You make money off of contractors using your financing. And your question to your potential customers, how much volume can you give me? Are you kidding me? You know? And I said, how about if I can add value to your business, then we can work with each other. And if I'm the best, then you'll give me your volume. And if I'm not, you won't. Right? Like I just 100%, I'm a free market guy, and competition is good for everybody. So I'm all about competition. I never expect to be given anything that I didn't earn, right? But if I earn it, I expect to get it, right? So I work really hard. Rob and I both put in a lot of hours because we're dedicated to this, you know. And when people call me at 7 o'clock at night, I pick up my phone. You know, frustrates the crap out of my wife, but like we are responsive, you know, and that's the biggest problem. That's one of the biggest problems in this industry is I talk to guys and they're like, well, I worked with X company for all these years and I could never get a hold of them. And I was like, look, here's my cell phone number. Okay. If you have a problem, text me or call me and I will respond to you. Right. Like it can jack up your quality of life. Right.
Yeah.
But and it really doesn't do that much because most of the time I don't get that many calls, you know, after 8, 9 o'clock at night. Right. But
well, they tend to respect that a little bit too, right? But like that, and that's the same thing in our industry too, right? With marketing. Like I was on the phone with the guy the other day. It's like I left my company because I couldn't get a hold of them.
yeah,
it was like beating my head against the board trying to get in touch with somebody. It frustrated me to no end. And like, yeah, that's shitty customer service.
yeah. At the end of the day, that's you build trust by adding value. You know, if I can help you in some way, then obviously you're going to trust me. And if I'm not lying to you or misleading you or blowing smoke at you, then that tends to go a long ways too, right?
Perfect. Good time to add this in here. So you guys do free sales trainings for people, and I know that I'm probably going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to drop your guys' website and your email address for them to get in touch with you. But I want you to talk to us a little bit about the free sales training that you guys offer, and then we'll come back to the trust topic.
Yeah. So we have a couple things actually. So we have a couple selling tools that we for people who want them. They're totally optional. They're free, right? So we built and developed them. We have a sort of an intro to financing tool that's supposed to be homeowner facing, and we have a proposal tool that's also homeowner facing. So they're super simple to use. But really, the sales training is not necessarily canned. It's about where are your sales guys today, right? If I go into a 3-man shop and the owner is also the comfort advisor, that's a different conversation than if I go into a shop where there's 27 people and a dedicated comfort advisor and he's come from other companies, right? Like, so you can add value to both of those. But yeah, we provide sales training for comfort advisors, for selling techs. We actually even train, territory managers for distributors and manufacturers. And we've been doing this for a long time. So I don't pretend like we have all the answers. We just go and deliver the best value we can. And I always tell guys, these are optional tools. If I tell you something, you say that would never work for me, my feelings are not going to be hurt and we'll move on to the next thing. Because there's a lot of personalities and I've seen a lot of people succeed in very different ways. So I know comfort advisors who do it this way and they say, oh, this is the only way to do it. And anybody who does it that way will never succeed. And then I meet another comfort advisor who does $3-4 million a year and who does it the opposite way. So I don't pretend like, hey, there's only one way to succeed in this. There's a lot of ways to fail, that's for sure, right? You know, but there are more than one way to succeed. So we really try to add value to the process. Part of that's education and helping them understand the financing offerings and how to talk about it and how to really integrate it into their existing process. My thought is do no harm, right? So anytime I go to implement a new practice in a business, my thought is, how do we put this into place while changing as little as possible? Whatever you're doing today, keep on doing it. Let's just change 1 or 2 little tweaks, and hopefully that helps you get a 15 to 20% bump in your close rate by utilizing the financing line.
100%. Well, and to get it, so if you do want to take advantage of that, reach out to Seth. Obviously, you can get him on the website gainerpartners.com, gainerpartners.com. We'll put those in the show notes for those that are listening later on. If you want to send him an email, Seth@gainerpartners.com. That's Seth@gainerpartners.com. You could reach out to him to chat a little bit more about some of the extra value added offers that they do. So back on track to the trust topic. The next level of that is say, okay, you've earned the HVAC contractor's trust by what it is that you guys do. How does that same HVAC contractor then go about and earn trust with their customer in order to be able to build that level up and build that conviction in what they do, to be able to help push that along and
Yeah.
get the, help them out the right way.
So something that, that I learned from Devin, but I've heard a lot of really successful comfort advisors say this is that when I show up to the house, the first thing I do is spend 10, 15 minutes talking about anything other than the job, right? Like I talk about anything other than the reason that I'm there, right? Build a human connection, right? That is step number one. Build a connection. People buy from people they like. Like if they like you, you're 50% of the way there. It's not an automatic close, but boy, if they don't like you, it's almost an automatic rejection. So at a minimum, you're going to get, let me think about it, and you're going to get put on ice. You might get that on the second close, but if you can build a human connection, so that, or just right out the gate, hey, that's an amazing truck. Oh man, that's such a cool fish. Where'd you catch that? Oh, right. Like just notice a person, take an interest in a person. And it can't be fake, right? Like you have to actually be sincerely and genuinely interested in people. Like you have to care about who they actually are in order for this to work. So it's not like this formula where I say all this and that. Actually, you just have to be the kind of person who cares about other people. So I know that's a hard thing to say, but if you're not the kind of person who cares about other people, then become that kind of person or find a new profession, right? Like if you don't sincerely want to help people and help them to fix their problem and you don't care about what they say, then you're probably in the wrong place, right? So building a human connection and establishing credibility. Those are the two things, right? You have to build that connection, and then you have to prove that not only are you a good guy who I like, but you're also like an honest guy and you're good at what you do and you're professional. So there's a lot of things that go into both of those, right? The first one in some ways is harder than the second one, building that human connection, establishing a true relationship. But the second one, there's a lot of really best practice groups out there that talk about this, but obviously it's showing up on time, not sitting in your van for, 15 minutes and talking on the phone before you ever get out, right? Putting on booties, keeping your distance, wearing a mask nowadays, just being super respectful, respecting everything about them. If they say something, you don't say stuff that directly challenges them, puts them down, right? Like you got to build the credibility and respect, and you have to be willing to put the time in. Like I know guys who want to show up and just spend 15 minutes and drop a price in their lap. All right, call me if you say you want to do it. They're not calling you, you know? Like that's not going to work. You got to be willing to put the time in to build that credibility.
Sure.
Well, especially heading into the summer, you see that all the time where guys will take shortcuts, right? Because they've got 8 calls to do that day. And so they don't go through the full gambit, the full presentation, trying to increase that sale on an average call. Sorry to cut you off there, Thad.
No, it's all good, man. That's part of the having 2 co-hosts is that we both have great ideas and great questions on that. So I want to let me try to think of the best way to phrase this the question, because you're not a marketing expert and we're the marketing experts. But I still want to ask your opinion on that because you've obviously done quite a bit in terms of your guys' business and getting it out there and building that. So with a human connection and credibility as being the 2 biggest things to help establish trust, how can somebody, and you've alluded to some of this already on the website itself, but the website's the destination where they go to. When you have the marketing going out there, how can an HVAC company look to say, okay, I know that I need to help build a human connection, and establish credibility? How do I convey that in my marketing?
That's a good question. Part of this goes to branding, right? Like, do you have a brand that says I'm friendly, or do you have a brand that's sort of sterile and sanitized and doesn't really connect with anybody at an emotional level? Part of this has to do with, what's your approach to marketing? What's the tone of voice that you use when you're communicating to customers? Is it, sort of this high level corporate marketing thing where it's just you take no risks, right? Like, we're just going to use completely risk-free language in all of our marketing. It's like, well, no one's going to read your marketing because it sucks, right? So, like, you've got to take a risk. That's the bottom line. Nobody wants to do that because they don't want to alienate people. It's like, well, if I say these things, I'm going to irritate this little small group of people over here. It's like, you know what? You can't please everybody. You can't be all things to all people. You got to know what your niche is. You got to know where you belong and who your people are. And so, like, choose your voice and then be true to it. Like, much of the time, a company is a reflection or like a manifestation of who the owner is. Much of the time you just see like it's the company kind of develops in this organic way to become really like a manifestation and outgrowth of the owner themselves and their personality. And it comes out in who their hiring practices are, how they're marketing, how their voice comes across. So that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing, right? But I think definitely getting with a good marketing company who actually has experience, who knows HVAC, who's been like you guys,
On purpose media. Sorry, had something caught in my throat there.
Like on purpose media, but a company that knows what they're doing, right? A company that's been in this, had this experience and who has perspective and who has seen a lot of different companies because they've worked with different companies. It's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do your own marketing. It really is. It's multifaceted today. There's so many different elements to it. It's not just taking out an ad in a newspaper or a radio ad anymore. Like, right, you have so many niche versions of marketing. You have the social media marketing. You have your website and the management and the updating to it. Like, it's challenging. So, I mean, a lot of that.
Would you rather pay somebody, these that aren't necessarily our rates, or just random numbers, would you rather pay somebody $50,000 that has no experience and doesn't really know what they're doing, and you have to train them to handle your marketing, and every time they leave, you got to retrain that same person? Or would you rather spend that exact same amount of money to a company who is experts that you say, here's my shit, market it, and away you go, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's, handing that off to an expert is one of the best things and the best decisions that a business can do, especially if they want to take it to the next level.
I have one of my best friends runs a payroll HR company, right? And they do metrics and analytics, and he's pretty big size, he's, I don't know, what, 30 something employees maybe or something like that. Team works. But he told me, it was like, oh yeah, I'm paying this company. It was something like 10 grand a month or something like that. He was marketing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. And he's like, dude, I mean, if you consider all my other alternatives, I can hire a couple people to try and do this, and they don't have the industry expertise and they don't know what they're doing. It's just worth it to me, right? Like, it's easy. They take over the whole thing. Here's all the services they provide. And after we talked about it for a while, I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is the smart thing to do. So marketing can be very expensive, but who was it? I talked to a contractor who was like, it's a money machine. I put $1 into marketing, I get $2 out. So I always get a return on that. So what it looks like it's expensive, but actually it's returning everything. I get a 2-to-1 return on everything I put into it. So
especially when it's done the right way. Marketing is expensive, but it's an investment into your business. It's not you gotta, like, people gotta stop looking at marketing as an expense. It's literally investing in the growth of your business. And it's also expensive to not do it the right way, because you mess things up and you just wasted all that money, right? Yeah. Especially if you're doing it yourself and you don't know what the heck you're doing, or you're going to try something and you blow a couple $1,000s. Well, that's why we always say we fail in the right way. Like, we know that there's going to be some campaigns that we're going to launch and they're going to fail, but there's a reason behind it. And we're going to fail in the right way to be able to move that forward. And even when we fail, the results are still really good. Like, let's, be real. I mean, I should say that. I mean, I guess there's some campaigns that just won't, but hey, you never know until you test, right?
That's a portion of it, right?
It's a portion of it, right? It's not everything all into it. If somebody's like, hey, I got $2,000 a month in ad spend, for your Facebook ads. Can you test it all on one thing? No. Well, we're going to put it on, we're not going to put it all on black. Well, we'll do half on black and half on red. Spin the wheel, right? And away you go.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, Seth, one of the things that you said really stood out to me, and it was talking about risk. And if you're not taking a risk in marketing, you're not really appealing to anyone. You've got this cold corporate feel. And this is like the extent of my entire Bible knowledge. I am not a religious person at all, but I absolutely love this verse, and it's from Revelations 3:15. And it's a point in the Bible where Jesus comes back as a judge, is like the story of it, right?
Yeah.
And he says, because you are lukewarm, neither too hot or too cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens in marketing. That's what happens in life. Like, when you are not committed to one thing or the other, and you're just floating in the middle, you're not appealing to anyone. You think you're trying to make everyone feel better, but you're actually not appealing to anyone. You need to stand out above everyone else and just be you and be real and be authentic. Mm-hmm. Some people aren't going to like it. We started off our show saying good conversations with good people. Any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. And we've had people come back to us and say, you know what? I don't like that you say that, and I don't listen to your show because of it. And I say, I don't care, because that's authentic to us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you just can't please everybody. I'll add one thing to that, which is, I've talked a lot about risk with a lot of people, And the way people understand or interpret risk, I think for the most part is completely wrong, right? So if you imagine risk as being a Venn diagram, right, which is kind of like the Olympic circles, right? So you have this Venn diagram, 3 overlapping circles, right? One of them is probability, one of them is exposure, and one of them is severity. Where all 3 of those overlap, that is your risk. And people believe their risk to be the entire probability circle or the entire severity circle. It's like, no, your risk is where all 3 of those things meet. That's your risk. So people over quantify their risk. They assume that things are more risky than they are. And because of that, they don't try things, right? Like they're afraid to go out and do stuff. But it's like your risk is actually this big and you're thinking it's this big. So you've got to go out there, and the risk that you're taking is probably much smaller than you think it is.
Totally. Well, and even when it comes to investing, Paul Tudor Jones, like his philosophy is, I want to bet on 5 companies that I am going to 100x my money on, right? 4 of them are going to go to 0. One of them is going to win and I get a 20% return.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So that's, and it's funny, you mentioned the Venn diagram, and that's exactly what that is. 4 are going to fail, 1's going to succeed, and I double my money, so I'm good, right?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I remembered something else that had said. Now I forget it. I was going to write it down.
I say a lot of great things. So
he says so many
once in a while.
Things, you know?
Yeah, every now and then. They help you just 1 for 10. Well, we take notes as the show is going on in the background, and then I'm like, oh man, we got to rewatch it because there's so much knowledge that gets dropped every single show. So,
and this was a quote from Peter Gerber, right? There's 2 things that you need to invest in your business: innovation and marketing. Everything else is an expense.
Yep.
Right. And that's what you talked about that there, where in marketing is an investment.
100%.
Yeah.
So, well, as we, start to wrap things up here, with the show, we do have a couple last few questions, on how I'm just actually trying to look, at what we haven't asked from everything that we've covered on that. So, what, I guess, when you look at success, success is one of those topics that is, you ask somebody what their definition of success is, and everybody has a wildly different definition. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what does success mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It is HVAC success secrets.
I know. So I knew you guys would be asking these good questions, right? So I'll share a little bit personal, which is that there for a lot of years, I'm a very ambitious guy, right? So I also have ethics and morals, so that stops me from stepping on people's heads to get where I want to go, right? But it doesn't stop the fact that I want to be successful and I want to work my way all the way there. I want to get there on my own merits, right? There was a lot of years when I was sort of frustrated, like just internally frustrated because things weren't moving as fast as I wanted to go, or I was feeling like I was working my guts out and I wasn't getting the opportunity that I felt I deserved, or that I was being passed up for something that I should have earned, or something like that, right? And I had this sort of realization where I just realized, like, look, I'm defining my success as my income, right? Like I'm defining my success as what my bank account says about me. And had a lot of really long conversations with my wife about it, and she's in school to become a therapist, so she's a pretty good, but she straightens me out a lot. But I just realized, like my success ultimately has very little to do with my ability to earn income. I have 5 children, I've got a wife, and at the end of the day, like, I believe there's a God, and I believe we're all going to have to, be accountable for the way we live our life, right? And I believe that, each of us has to live with ourselves. We have to derive meaning from all of the hardship and suffering in this life, right? As the old saying goes, life is suffering, right? But we have to derive meaning from the chaos of life, right? And sometimes we get plunged into chaos through just the fact that we live in a world that is chaotic. And sometimes it's through the malice of other people that we get plunged into chaos. But we have to construct a construct of reality. We have to have a context that allows us to derive meaning, not just from the good things, but from the bad things as well. And that sort of construct that we adapt, our own personal moral and ethos, that is how we define success. And for me, defining success comes down to, how am I treating people? What kind of a husband and father am I? Can I look at myself at the end of the day? Like, am I honest? Can I live with myself? Am I going to have regrets when I'm 50, 60 years old because I look back and be like, man, I screwed that guy. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Like I don't want to live my life that way. So if I get to be 75 years old, I'm like, you know what? I did stupid crap. I screwed up. I didn't live a perfect life, but I was always doing the best I could, and I tried to stick by my moral compass. To me, that's success, right? So there's a lot of some of the most incredible people through history were impoverished their whole life, right? They were never like super rich people. So I don't set money as sort of the standard for success. I think it's way supersedes money. All that being said, of course, I want to make a ton of money and be really successful that way too. But yeah,
money doesn't buy happiness. It just buys nice shit.
It just buys everything else,
It buys everything else, but it doesn't like, you look at some of the people that have everything in the world, but they don't have, decisions rooted in morals and ethics. They're unhappy because they haven't made the right decisions in terms of what they have. And so it's like, yeah, okay, money's nice. I like money too. I like earning money, but by no means is it going to be the root of my happiness, on that. So I'm glad that you had that in there. So Evan.
Well, I was just going to say, money doesn't make you happy, but neither does being poor. So you may as well make some money.
That's a fact right there.
Exactly. So,
awesome. Well, as we wrap this up here, Seth, we got one last question for you. What is one question that you wish people would ask you more, but they don't?
I love that. I love that question, by the way.
That's a really thoughtful question. What is a question I wish people would ask me more?
But don't. It stumps every single guest that we have. It completely does. I don't know if me continuing to talk is just me filling time and it helps you think of the question, or just distracts you from actually thinking of the question itself.
I don't know, honestly. Like Rob, my partner, always calls me Chatty Cathy. He's like, "Oh man, you have the gift of gab. You are so chatty."
Well, you are a lawyer, so
that's what I say. I went to 3 years of school for that. So I usually end up saying what it is I want to say. You know what I mean? So I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm really into HVAC financing and all that stuff in business, but I enjoy talking philosophy and ethics and religion and things like that, things that answer the big questions of why. Like the big questions that span through the ages of, what makes a good life? How do you structure a good society? How do you, like, the fundamental questions of life? Like, to me, those are things that are the most interesting, and that I think I can connect with just about anybody based on those questions like that. If you just depoliticize things, right? And your goal is just to build a relationship and understand other people, you can really connect and make relationships with just about anybody, regardless of their political stripes or religious background or anything like that, by just trying to figure out what are their fundamental ethics. What do you believe that the purpose of life is? What do you believe that makes a good life? How should we structure society to make it good? How should a family interact with each other? That kind of stuff. So I know that's way off topic, but I'm just being totally honest here. For me, that those questions are interesting, and I think they extend beyond all of the stuff that we try to do here. But again, I kind of say things that I want to say.
That's bang on, dude. And I appreciate the authenticity when it comes to that. So let me ask you this then, Seth, in 2 minutes or less, because we are running short on time, what makes a great life?
I think that, family is first, to be honest. I think that, well, to paraphrase a philosopher, is to say that, in order to have a good life, in order to be happiness, you have to know what God expects of you. You have to know, you have to believe that there is some type of a higher force, higher power, something that dictates right and wrong. Because without any type of that, there's just nihilism. If that were a big cosmic accident, if we're all just dust floating around, then life is pointless, right? Like, so I've got to have some type of assurance that there's some type of purpose here. Then I have to have some idea of what the universe expects of me and what God expects of me. Then I have to know that my life is in alignment with those things, right? So it comes down to integrity, really. What do you believe you should be doing? Are you doing that thing? If you're not going to be happy. You're going to wake up in the night, you're going to have mental health issues, you're going to do things like that. Like, stay true to yourself. As they say, like, if you don't live according to your beliefs, you'll eventually end up believing the way that you've lived. So don't compromise your integrity. Have the courage to be who you are and just say, this is who I am. This is what I believe I should do. I'm going to do it. So to me, that's a good life. Integrity.
Love it. Well, and as long as you're progressing towards it, progress equals happiness. So
yeah.
So, well, and that's, honesty and transparency are two like as our organization, are our two big core values, and we run all of our decisions through honesty and transparency, which is essentially integrity, right? When you have that, you don't have to. You can sleep good at night if you have integrity on your side, right? You don't have to worry about ripping somebody off or doing something bad or injustice to that. So on the hour, I do want to take the time, Seth, to thank you for taking your time out of your day to chat with two crazy Canadians up in Canada. So we do thank you. Obviously, our guests thank you as well. And until next time, cheers.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, you're very welcome. So it was a great chat. I'm sure that we'll have you on again because I think we just scratched the surface on a lot of things, on it. But again, great topics, great things. Team replay will definitely be in full effect and a force for this to grab those notes. So thanks again, and until next time. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. That URL one more time, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one little golden nugget of information from this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, what we ask is you introduce this show to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all we ask. Introduce it to one person in your contacts list so they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.